Hello there guys, welcome back to another episode of E&Ftv. Today we are joined by the brilliant Shona Whitehead, Managing Partner at Cogent Blue. Shona, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Tom, good to be here. Thanks for asking me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I've been watching, obviously, your content that you've been putting out on LinkedIn and things, and I was actually really keen to get you on the show because I think a number of things that you've been talking about recently have been really sort of thought-provoking. So I thought it would be a really good sort of chance to get you on. So Shona, what we usually do on the show is we always start with finding out a little bit about the guest. So a little bit about you, what your background is, how you discovered revenue management, and of course, I suppose, more excitingly, how you got to the point of starting your own business. So please give us a bit of background about you.
Lovely, thanks Tom. So a little bit of ancient history, I guess, but I got into hotels when I was 13, well, hospitality. So I've been working in hospitality a long time and originally was planning to be a GM. And was kind of scuppered my plans on that a little bit when I finished my graduate training scheme with 40 and was offered a conference and banqueting sales manager role at the Randolph in Oxford, and then went on to do business development. And at that time, we were the pilot site for the 40 revenue guarantee programme. So I think it kind of all stemmed from there. So although I've got a sales and operational background, which is not typical now, it was pretty typical then, I think, probably. So I was with 40 for a number of years, and then I moved on to Queen's Malthouses. So I was with Malthouse for 7 years, and they were actually quite ahead of the curve on the revenue management front. They had a brilliant revenue management programme. So I worked in Northampton, in Stratford, in central London, and my plan was always to get up to this kind of group level leadership role, but I wanted to work in a number of different types of properties and get the full sort of breadth of experience. So I'd done MICE, I'd done leisure, I'd done resort, I'd done provinces, I did London, and then I moved to Hilton and worked at the Hilton at Heathrow 4 months before 9/11, so you can imagine what that experience was like. And I left that role and went into my first regional role. So I was looking after 23, 24 hotels in the South region for Hilton. And then I left there and went to Travelodge. And Travelodge was an amazing experience for me because there was no revenue management there. There were two guys, Ryan and Warren, that did pricing. And I was asked to go in and set up a revenue management team from scratch, completely centralised. It was the first centralised group level revenue team in the UK. And we had ideas. I think we were the first cloud install they did at a group level. So we had all the right technology. We had a completely new team, none of them from a hotel background, by the way, some from reservations, travel, retail. And we just started from scratch. We set up revenue management the way that we thought it would work for that business, completely sort of managing your top line in a profit-centric way, as you do with budget properties. I'm sure you know that. And yeah, it was a really successful time. We took the business from 220 to 330 hotels. And a lot of the team that were there then as part of that initial group, they're all in senior revenue management roles now within the UK business, which I love to see. It's so nice when you see people progress through. And my role expanded. So I started with revenue, then distribution, then the contact centre, outsourcing, web development. It was a really small, agile team. We could do stuff quickly, we could test and learn, we could reverse it if it went wrong. It was a real kind of culture of innovation, I would say. So I went back from there into full service at IHG, and I guess after 18 months wanted a role that was more using the breadth of experience that I'd gained, and that's what started Cogent Blue. So I started my business. We're just over 10 years old now, so we did a bit of a celebration on that last year. And right after the last recession really started hitting. So kind of some people said I was a bit foolish, I suppose, at the time, but it's been a really, really great experience, and we help businesses right across the UK, Europe. We did a project on revenue management in Australia last year, and we help across commercial functions, so sales, marketing, distribution, revenue management and finance. And we look at people, we look at systems, and we look at processes as well. And I work with a fantastic team of associates. So that's it. That's Cogent Blue in a nutshell, and how I got into revenue management.
Fantastic. It's a really interesting one, because one of the points you picked up on was that your background was more sales operational of functions. And I actually had another guest on just last week, actually, who came from a similar background. And I was saying to her that, in fact, I think that background probably put you in a really good position with regards to communication skills, influencing skills, objection handling, all these types of things that generally, coming from maybe reservations or a more analytical function, generally as a support function going into a revenue management role, you generally don't get exposed to that sort of, I suppose, skill set or needing that skill set at that time.
No, and actually it made the whole execution of the role in my mind more straightforward, because you could understand if you were selling something what the operational impact was. No. You could understand if you converted a piece of business, the discussions that had to happen with other areas of the business and the impact on them. And we were managing total revenue in those days before total revenue was ever talked about. We just did it. The revenue manager had sales, they had reservations, they had meetings and events. Sometimes they had spa as well. And it wasn't until, I guess, 2004 that I ever managed a business that was only rooms driven.
Sure.
All the time before that was total revenue.
It's interesting because it seems that it went from total revenue through to siloing, and now it's sort of creeping back due to the times and the market that we're in, that we're actually moving back to the way it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think the people that are able to adapt into that are going to be the ones that will not only survive but thrive. And those that have been very happy and content with the silos, as we call them, will find it an incredibly big struggle right now. It's just the way it's going to be. It's strange how it's just moved straight back. It's like a old-fashioned style that's just coming back round.
It is, but with the benefit of that style, but with the benefit of better technology, better communication, leveraging everyone's skills and experience. So it should be definitely better than before. But yes, I agree with you. Some of that learning from years ago is definitely coming back to the table.
Definitely. I think it actually brings me on to my first sort of question to you regarding companies at the moment and their technology. So with so many businesses trying to get themselves back on their feet, trying to obviously get business back as usual, whatever that is now. What are your thoughts on tech debt? I mean, and for the audience that might not be familiar with the term, but, give us your views on it and obviously what the effect you think will be for those businesses for the recovery.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of talk now about technology, your tech stack, how to leverage it, how that can help improve the business. But every business has got tech debt of some kind. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does have to be understood and managed. So when I'm talking about tech debt, it's really the cost of maintaining systems and perhaps making a quick and easy decision about something where there is a better solution that will take longer and is more complex, that may come back to bite you at a later stage. So it's really about not just comparing current versus future system costs, but all the implications of what is the value that technology is adding to your business, or is it holding your business back? And I think at the moment it's particularly germane because there's a lot of discussion around capital expenditure versus operational expenditure, and do businesses have the investment funds available to change their technology if they feel they need to? And it's really understanding how to make an informed decision on that. And I think a couple of things I would say to look at is, firstly, a lot of the legacy systems like PMSs and sales and catering, they are behemoth systems that have got masses of functionality, very little of which is used. And the way new technologies are working is about microservices. So having a system that is very specific and very fit for purpose for a specific area of the business, but also super interoperable. In other words, having a very strong API that can connect into other microservices and enables the businesses to make sure they're not paying for some massive system where they're only using a small percentage of the functionality. I think the other areas to look at in tech debt is your customer. So with your technology, are you still easy to do business with? Does your technology help you improve the customer journey? Does it help you improve the guest experience? If the answer to those questions is no, you have definitely got technical debt that needs addressed. And then the other one is your staff, your team. Is your technology slowing them down, or is your technology speeding them up? Can they innovate? Can they grab every commercial opportunity? And if the answer to those questions is no, that's a technical debt. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're suddenly going to change something, but at least you need to understand the implications of some of the decisions that are being made. Sometimes holding on to those legacy systems, I think the operating expenditure of maintaining them, administering them, doing the housekeeping on them, and just paying for the hardware and software. Sometimes if you compare that to the cost of bringing in a new system and ongoing costs, you could make a change when you look at all the commercial aspects as well. So it's kind of, do you look at changing, upgrading, simplifying your systems, or even retiring your systems versus staying where you are now, and not just looking at your tech stack, but looking at your tech debt concurrently.
Wow. I think it's something obviously we spoke about a couple of weeks ago now, but one of the points that I was making is that at this point in time, especially in the market we're in, I think in my opinion, obviously I'm not a hotelier, but with regards to tech right now, if it's not up to scratch, or if there are businesses that do have tech that is making things more streamlined, whether that be for the business or for the customer, surely they're going to have that advantage or head up above its competition if they are in this situation.
Yeah, and that's entirely correct. So, and again, I think that's about making an informed decision, keeping up to date with what is going on in the marketplace. And not just, I've had discussions with businesses that are saying, oh, we can't afford to make the change, not just because of the cost of the system, but the time that it's going to take to make the change. We've got a much reduced team now, and therefore we haven't got the people. Yeah. But not realising that the implementation of some of the newer solutions is so much simpler than the implementation of some of the legacy systems, and therefore the experience of what people have done in the past is not necessarily what they're going to experience in the future. So it is definitely worth going back and looking at those options to keep up to date and being able to capture every commercial opportunity.
Completely agree. I think it's one of these things where this period of time has been massively disruptive in a hugely negative way, but there are positives to be taken from it where you can address these issues almost as in a sense of necessity. If the market is dictating that you have to. It actually, again, I suppose, looking at the people aspect of what you were just saying, this brings me on to my next question. It's something that I've had a lot of exposure to more recently, obviously, with so many unfortunate redundancies and restructures and obviously consultation periods being started with a lot of people. And this question was more around your thoughts on how businesses are going about making these redundancies, but more specifically, the people they're choosing. Because within teams, as you will know from your experience over the years as well, is you will have people at different levels of experience, but also more specialisms within those roles. And as we've said, revenue managers within certain environments, they may have come from a total revenue management background. They might have that skill set that everybody's looking for right now, but they're almost being packed in or selected in a large group of people that might not have that same skill set. So I suppose, what's your opinion on the way redundancies are happening and what the thought process is behind those, I suppose?
Okay, yeah. I think the team and the people aspect is absolutely critical to everything we do. We're a hospitality business, and the first thing probably to say is how people are treating their teams and handling this process is going to have long-lasting implications for the individuals and for the businesses. And I'm sure you're seeing some being handled exceptionally well and others not quite so well, which is unfortunate. I've had quite a few of my old team that are now in senior positions reach out to me saying, oh, I've got to go through this process for the first time with my team. Can you give me some pointers about how to handle this? And I've done quite a lot of this in the past with my own teams, the last recession, for example, but also we've helped some customers do reorganisations due to growth in business. So it's not always to do with reducing the size, it's sometimes about repositioning people into the right roles. I think the first thing I would say about the redesign of organisations now, and unfortunately redundancies will happen, and it's to mitigate business risk for the longer term so that employment opportunities will return, is to really understand what people do. So I've seen the approach where you have a job title, a name and a salary, and that's it, and decisions are based on that line. But businesses have to understand what all those individual roles actually entail, because we know what's on a job description is not necessarily what an individual person does. And I think of examples like, a revenue manager who is the specialist in the revenue management system, but that may not be in their job description, or the revenue manager who produces your weekly stats out to the operating board. And all of a sudden you realise that person has gone along with the role, and on the Monday morning, the first day of the new structure, you're not getting any of the business critical information that you need. Or a sales manager that is your sales CRM champion, and all of a sudden you're not keeping your CRM up to date, so your chance to convert inquiries or account manage effectively becomes really, really hard. So I think the first thing I'd say is that looking below the surface of a name, a job title and a salary, and properly understand what people do. Yeah. And then I think just being realistic as well about current and future requirements. And I speak, I'm very passionate about revenue management, but good revenue managers are hard to find. And even in the current climate, they will get snapped up. So looking at where you are now, but being realistic about where you might be in 3, 4, 5 months, and saying, okay, what is the cost of a redundancy versus the cost of re-recruiting, onboarding, training, getting somebody up to date with your business, is properly assess the cost versus benefit of that. Because again, the last thing you want to be doing is going out into market in a few months' time where there's a dearth of really good revenue managers, and the ones that are in the market are more expensive. So it's just really being realistic, kind of catch yourself on about what your requirements are going to be in a few months, and make an informed decision about that.
Definitely. I think it's an interesting one as well, because a lot of people, again, are focusing on the unfortunate individuals that are being made redundant. And something that I've been putting a lot of focus on is actually, on the flip side of that, is the people that are staying within the teams, that are left to keep the business going, or the boat afloat, if you like. Yes, they need to understand what's going to be happening now, but also they're probably going to be put into new teams with new management structures and culture shock, dynamic change, plus the anxiety of everything that's going on in the market. Yeah. It's one of these things where more than ever, I think employers need to understand, as you so rightly said, actually, who that individual is, what they're capable of, but almost what their motivators are as well. Who is this person that we've kept, and what does drive them? Because they're at risk of alienating the people that are left.
Yeah.
they might not, it's all, I'm just thinking about this like off the cuff here, but it's almost, as you said, you know, you've got somebody that did that morning, you know, stat meeting or provided that information to the board. That person's now not there anymore, and it's almost just expected of this next person.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And it's
and I think that that is a whole ways of working discussion, isn't it? To say, okay, if we're going to reduce our organisation by 25%, what are we going to do with that? You know, 25% of the work, and it's actually, you know, sad as the current times are. It's a massive opportunity for businesses to go back and say, right, we're going to simplify what we do. We're going to stop doing these 10 ridiculous tasks that we should have never been doing in the first place, all the duplication of reporting, all the duplication of work. We're going to have meaningful discussion with the team that we do have about how we can work in a better way. And it has to be communicated across the board. So there is no point in the sales team doing that, or the revenue team, or the marketing team. Everyone has to understand what those new ways of working are and buy into them. Otherwise, you're going to get a phone call on a Tuesday morning saying, like you rightly said, oh, where's my report? And say, well, actually, that report got stopped. Oh, but I need that report. You know, so it has to be very strong in the communication aspect, and not siloed. Yeah. Not siloed across the commercial and operational functions, but again, being, I guess, really objective and maybe quite brutal about really focusing on activities that are generating revenue and profit. Yeah. That is the key thing.
I think there's going to be a lot of people that watch this episode literally screaming at the screen saying, yes, stop the silos, and yes, I completely agree, and this is time for change. It's just one of these things that is just going on at the moment. Yeah. Well, it will be really interesting now to understand a bit about what's been going on with your business, obviously during the pandemic, but things that have been exciting, things that have been interesting. Yeah, it'd be good to hear about what's been going on with you guys.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tom. Well, I guess we're a hospitality business, so we have been affected like everybody else. At the end of March, we had a number of projects that naturally were coming to an end, interim roles, etc. So that was fine. But we had a number of projects that we went out to our clients and said, we understand, we're all in this together. If this needs to stop for now or forever, that's fine by us. So it was all about communication, working, just having a kind of joined up approach with the people we're working with. So we're fortunate that some of our business did continue. And I do some coaching, which has been great to do over this period, to be able to support people that are managing challenging commercial situations or teams. So that's been lovely. One of the big initiatives I took on with my associates right at the beginning was to say, okay, how do we help other hospitality businesses through this using specialist skills? So we started a piece of pro bono, pro bono initiative really, that kind of went out to our current clients, but also to anyone. It was kind of open, anyone in hospitality, if you need help, contact us. So I think over April and May, and extended into June and July, we gave over 220 hours of pro bono time across about 20 of the team. And we were doing everything. We were doing competitor analysis for a hotel group in Brussels. We found a training onboarding system for a recruitment company in London of casual staff. We helped a service department startup do their commercial strategy. We helped a global company find their discovery elements for their business intelligence tools. So it was quite varied. It was really motivational for us to be helping people, but also just learning and meeting new people as well. And it's really made me think about continuing that initiative, probably in a bit more of a structured way, and making that part of what we do as a business. Because I think in hospitality, what has happened in the last few months is this spirit of we are in this together and we all have to help each other. Yeah. And it's certainly been, not entirely altruistic, because we've all really enjoyed it and we've all learned from it, as well as helping other businesses.
Yeah, I honestly could not agree with you more. with regards to the aspect of we're all in this together. I think at the very start, there were these statements being thrown out saying, oh, we're in this together and all this sort of stuff, but nothing was really happening. We were all just sort of waiting to see how it all was all going to start to pan out. And I actually had a really interesting conversation with a business last week, and they contacted me to ask about setting up a meeting like the ones that I hold. But I'd never spoken to them before. And what they basically wanted to do was to provide some sort of product in this meeting. And I was saying to them, look, in the market you're in now, you have to flip it on its head. I used an analogy that I made up on the spot, and I was so proud of myself. I said, if your clients are in the ocean right now, and they've got lifeboats there, or they've got sharks trying to make a sail, they've got sharks that are trying to get a quick sail in, they are much more likely to swim towards the lifeboats that are there to help, that are there to guide, that are there to offer a helping hand, rather than the sharks that are there to make a quick sail and keep business going.
Totally agree, yeah.
Because I think that everybody's just going to see through that. And if we have got this spirit of coming together, working together, trying to drive positive change, that's not going to happen from people just trying to make a quick sale. It's just
no.
And that's why I agree with you so much, is because there's businesses like yours and like my own that are genuinely trying and also passionate about trying to drive change but genuinely help, businesses that are struggling.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so refreshing, because I think we're in times right now where, again, it's almost a necessity. If you want to be seen after this pandemic as somebody that is willing to help, that is there when needed, you'll be remembered. And that's what you guys will be remembered for.
Well, I hope so. But the bottom line for me is I've worked in hospitality all my career, and I wanted to survive and thrive through this.
Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. Well, Shona, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know that you are very busy at the moment, so slotting this into your diary is very much appreciated. It's been great to hear your views on certain topics, but also, I suppose, our discussion around other areas has been really great, to be honest, about obviously you guys helping the industry where you can. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Thank you so much for appearing. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, Tom. I appreciate you asking me. And good luck for the next ones.
Thank you very much. And guys, please stay tuned to see who's on next week's episode now.